Welcome back to another edition of Laws and Sausage TV, where we bypass the talking heads of cable news and the psychosis of social media, and we take you behind the scenes to see how the sausage actually gets made in the world of politics. Now, we all know that in politics, perception is everything. And part of perception is proper public relations. Excuse my alliteration. But joining me today is a 23-year broadcast veteran, Scott Walker, who left the world of broadcast television to go into media consulting, and a big part of his practice is social media consulting. Scott, welcome to the program.
Hi, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in. So, Scott, you had a very successful run, 23 years in broadcast TV, starting out as a sports reporter, working your way up to lead anchor at the local NBC affiliate here in New Orleans, WDSU. You walked away from that. Tell us about what you're doing now.
Well, I say 23 years and never got fired, so I can hang my hat on that.
Always important.
It's a good accomplishment to make it through 23 years in the broadcast industry and to never get a pink slip. But I knew the time was right for change. When you know, and people wondered why at the age of 43 I could just walk away from everything that I was doing, because it looks like great job, great TV station, ratings are good, but it was beyond all that. It was time for change, and I just knew I needed to do something else with my life. And if I'm lucky, I'm halfway through this thing. You know, if I make it to 86, great. So I just wanted to do some different things with my life and go in a different direction. So I started about 18 months ago to look at the world of social media as part of what I was going to do, and educating younger people and business people alike. But I think the real problem right now is with younger people today, and they're not getting the proper social media background at a young age to advance into high school and college fully prepared. I'm also doing some media relations and public relations, social media consulting for businesses and branding on top of that. But 25% or so of what I'm doing right now, and I'd like to do a little bit more of it, is looking at social media from middle school on up, and really looking at what these young people are not getting in school and trying to fill that void a little bit.
Yeah, so let's start with the social media aspect of your business. So we talked earlier about how the fact that most kids, and we say kids because kids are getting younger and younger, getting these smartphones, and they're getting the social media apps downloaded, and they're using social media, but they don't get a lot of training on proper ways to use it, what to do, what not to do, from their parents or from their teachers or anything else. And it usually seems like only when something bad happens does it really get highlighted, the importance of social media etiquette for young people. So just talk us through a little bit about what like an average tutorial would be from Scott Walker.
Well, looking at middle school kids, 5th, 6th, 7th grade, you don't want to get to the point where you're expelled from school, you're suspended, or there's a news conference involving your school principal or your high school athletic director or your football coach. You don't want it to get to that point. And a lot of times it gets to that point where the mistakes are made and the correction is too late. So what I talk about is just kind of getting off on the right foot. I liken it to in middle school, when they're so thirsty and hungry for this information, the social media information. These 5th graders, 6th graders, even 4th graders want to get into it, and they want to learn more about it. But we throw them into the deep end of the pool and they don't know how to swim. We're like, this big social media world is out there. Go figure it out on your own. And that's what a lot of kids end up doing, and that's where the mistakes come in. So I think if we show them the right way along the way, to not put too much personal information out there about themselves, to stay away from cyberbullying, to realize that what they're putting on social media now can come back to bite them in high school and college and in their careers. A couple of years ago, I spoke to a college football program, and the players there just didn't understand why the bad things that they were putting on Instagram were bad. They didn't know what was wrong with it. They said, freedom of speech, it's my account, I can do what I want. But when you have a helmet up there that shows the school you play for, and the name of that school is in your bio, it's no longer just about you. It's about something much more than you. It's about other people. It's about your school. It's about your teammates. It's about your coaches and everybody else that's involved in your life. So you represent a whole lot more than just the individual at that point.
Right.
And that's what some people have a hard time wrapping their heads around, that they can't just do what they want anymore, because this stuff will follow you. You put it out there, even if you delete it instantly, somebody's going to grab that. There'll be a screen grab of it somewhere that'll come back and bite you.
Well, when you and I were kids, the way you developed your reputation had a lot to do with, who you hung out with. I guess maybe in some respect your conduct at school. Did you play sports? Did you take karate? There's a lot of things that develop your reputation. Now it's all on the internet. It's all on social media. and like you alluded to earlier, it's forever. And we all know that these days, especially, if you work somewhere and you say the wrong thing, you maybe compliment the way somebody's dressed and they don't take it as a compliment, you can get fired and you can have serious life-changing ramifications. So I think it's really important to start young. And then, like you mentioned, the college football players, I've seen situations where a coach got fired and immediately players would take to Twitter or Instagram and voice their displeasure with the university, and that's a career-limiting decision for these young people, and they don't realize it yet.
And thank God there's no digital record of our college days. That's why I tell people, every group that I talk to, thank God there's no digital record.
You never would have gotten on TV, and I never would have went into politics, that's for sure.
It's a different world. I mean, I say when we used to meet people to go eat lunch or dinner at the Commons at Southern Miss, the old Commons outside, if they didn't show up, you didn't know where they were. You just had to wait to go back to your room to see if the red light on your answering machine was blinking, to see if they left you a message. And that's the only way you found out where these people were. I use examples in my presentations of a teacher who referred to her students, a 23-year-old teacher, recent college graduate, referred to her students as jailbait on social media, posted pictures of herself smoking weed, and she referred to herself, she didn't post nudity, but she referred to herself as being naked, wet, and stoned in her social media post, and showed herself smoking weed. She got fired, of course. And another teacher who was friends with his students on Facebook in the Bronx was commenting under pictures like, "Hey, gorgeous," and talking about how the female students looked. He got fired because it's creepy. And I'll also say that parents, teachers should watch themselves when it comes to being friends with students' parents on Facebook.
Right.
Probably not the best idea. You don't want to be friends with those people on Facebook unless you have a personal relationship maybe beforehand and your kid ends up in their class. But to just become friends with your child's teacher is a slippery slope, because then that teacher has to watch everything even that much more closely that goes on social media. And it's tough, man. It comes at you from all angles.
A teacher in the Bronx is lucky the dad didn't show up on his doorstep.
Right. I mean,
the tough area, I know.
And you understand why these people get fired, and it's stupid, and you think it's a no-brainer type of thing. Like, how do they do this? But I think because that foundation isn't laid properly at a younger age, that this generation now, which I refer to as the most technologically advanced students and young adults in the history of the world, that's why they make these mistakes, because they are the most technologically advanced humans that we've ever seen. They've had tablets in their hands since they were young. Right. And they don't know what to do with it in a lot of cases.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've told young people, and it'd probably be good if I took some of my own advice, is that when a lot of what you post on social media is impulsive. It's a reaction to something that you see, a reaction to what somebody else says. And I say, type it out first, look at it, get it out of your system. You've said what you wanted to say, but before you hit post, look at it and just take a minute and pause and see if that's really something you want on your permanent record.
Right. I always say, let it pass the mom and grandmother test.
There it is.
If you can put it in front of your mother or grandmother and they would think it's okay, then it's probably okay. And never post emotionally. Late at night, early in the morning, nothing good happens on social media after 1 a.m. There are a lot of examples that I have that have a timestamp of midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., people who are just venting about something that happened during the day, either athletically or in school or about their boss.
Maybe they're a little altered, chemically altered.
Right, sleep on it and see if you still feel the same way the next day. Chances are you're not going to feel the same way the next day. You won't be as hot and bothered about it, so just let it go sometimes. It's just best to let it go.
So earlier you talked about being the right time to walk away from your broadcast career, and frankly, I kind of tend to agree with you in the sense that you have a name and you've been out there in the public medium, especially in this. I mean, you grew up in this area, but being a lead anchor for as long as you did, so you have that advantage of having a name and a brand. But let's talk about how you kind of help companies and organizations transfer what you have to them, like improving their brand, their image, and maybe even some media relations. I don't know if crisis management is part of it.
That's part of what the whole deal is, and I look at what I do as offering umbrella services for people. If you get me, you get whatever you want that I offer, and I'll give you all that as part of our monthly deal or whatever we end up doing. But when it comes to businesses and their brand and just rebuilding in some cases, which I'm doing for a few clients now, or just maintaining or getting more into the social media world. Some are just clueless about how to build an online presence and a social media presence. And I have several strategies that go into that and help a business kind of gain a footing in the social media world and just get themselves out there, because they want to be out there. They just don't know how to get out there and get noticed in the social media world. So it's a challenge for a lot of established businesses to jump into that. Some of the younger, new businesses, some of the millennials that are heading up businesses have a little more of a grasp on that kind of thing than some of the older businesses around. But they all want to be in it, and they all are competing for the digital eyeballs. And it's tough to get all those eyes. In local news, I know it's harder to get those eyes now too, and that's part of the reason that I left. I mean, local news, I think in general, is still on a pretty good footing. The numbers are still there ratings-wise. People are still watching. They get news during the day from social media, and local news has to react to that a little more than maybe in the past, where you could kind of drive the news at 4, 5, 6, and 10. Now you're reacting to some of the day's news that's happened before that on social media. A lot of it, I mean, a lot of stories every day come from social media and the videos on social media and reaction to it. So I think in a lot of cases, you're reacting to it, and I think 10 years from now, I don't know what local news will look like from a delivery standpoint. Will there still be a set 4, 5, 6, and 10? Or will it be more of a news on demand type situation? Will there be 4 local stations in a city like New Orleans? Will the market end up supporting 2 and a couple of them don't make it? The last 10 years, a lot has changed. It's going to be interesting to see what the next 10 years bring, to see how the dynamic changes even further, I think.
So the majority of our audience are political junkies, so I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, you over the years in broadcasting, you've covered a lot of political stories. How have you seen, the last decade or so as social media has emerged, how that's changed politics and certainly changed the political discourse in this country?
And I think in a lot of cases for the worse.
Probably so. I would agree.
The nastiness, especially on Facebook, with Democrats and Republicans just going at each other. It's such a violent and disconcerting world, I think, in a lot of cases, where you look at it and you're like, man, what have we become? Why can't we as people, as United States citizens, be on the same page when it comes to, look, you're going to have a different opinion than me. I'm going to wholeheartedly disagree with you, but I can disagree with you and we can still be okay.
Right.
We're not going to hate each other. We're not going to just go after each other and call each other names. I don't understand the just real hatred and nastiness that comes with a lot of this today. You're not going to have the same opinions on politics or a lot of things with other people.
What's been most disappointing to me is that the elected officials, they're supposed to be the adults in the room,
right? And
now they're kind of stoking the flames and encouraging this divisiveness and in some cases encouraging violence. And I see the stories about families not speaking to each other and lifelong friends stop speaking to each other over politics. And what I think a lot of them don't realize, and what I hope to try to get across on shows like this, is that at the top, like members of Congress and all that, you see them bickering. That's just professional wrestling. Most of those people actually get along behind the scenes when the cameras are off. But when it trickles down to the general public, it's real. And those people don't get along outside of the social media or however they're arguing or whatnot. And I think that being behind a computer screen or a phone screen, people have grown some artificial muscles and moxie, if you know what I mean. When you don't have to look somebody in the eyeball and insult them, you have a little bit more freedom or courage to do so, I think.
Right. I did a talk the other day where I brought up the name Barack Obama in a room of staunchly conservative people, and the room just erupted with groans. And I was talking about how I had met him. And I interviewed him years ago when he was a senator and was running for president. And I talked about how gracious he was and what a nice man he was, and that he was just super accommodating to me after a long night at a rally.
Right.
And people just don't want to hear it. They don't want to. You
weren't promoting him. You weren't promoting his candidacy or anything. You were they asked you a question. I remember they asked you a question like, what was a highlight of your career? And if you're going to have an exclusive with someone who was a sitting senator, eventually became president of the United States, that's got, regardless of what your opinion of him is, got to be a highlight.
It was, and it was the future president I was interviewing.
Exactly.
And he's the only future president that I've ever interviewed, and it didn't affect my coverage of him. I just remarked that he was a really nice man and was very gracious and accommodating, and I think that came across to voters. I mean, obviously, he made history when he won the presidential election, but the fact that some people just don't want to hear the name Barack Obama, and it makes them have chills run up their spine and they start to feel ill, it's a little much for me. I feel like we're all people, and I don't understand why, just because of different political ideologies, that we can't say, Barack Obama was good for the country in a lot of ways. Even if you're a Republican, you have to admit that he was good in a lot of respects. I mean, we're still here. You know?
Right, yeah,
he didn't.
yeah.
He didn't
survived.
He didn't drive the car off the cliff. So I think no matter what side you're on, you're gonna have big disagreements with
Right.
whoever's in charge. But it's just, can you have more agreements than disagreements and kind of work together? John McCain was great at that, reaching across the aisle and trying to come to some sort of happy medium.
Yeah, and a lot of people are afraid that type of reaching across the aisle, unfortunately, is going to die with him.
It looks like it's over,
And
which is unfortunate.
Centuries later, the words of Sun Tzu of divide and conquer still ring true, at least in American politics. Scott, it's been a great discussion. Thanks for coming on the show.
I will say I've never been on TV with facial hair before.
You left me hanging.
And this is
man.
the first time. Well, there it is. Appreciate you having me. We've known each other since Brother Martin.
Yeah,
It's been a long time.
Yeah,
I don't like to admit that publicly very often, but
No.
it's a pleasure to be here with you in a different setting.
Well, good. Well,
Thank you,
hopefully our folks have learned a little something, and good luck to you with your future endeavor.
Thank you.
All right. All right, well, that wraps up another edition of Laws and Sausage TV. I want to thank Scott Walker for stopping by, and we hope that you all learned something today about the importance of social media and public relations. If you like these episodes, please like and share on whatever social media platform you're watching, and feel free to leave your comments below. This has been Brian Trasher for Laws and Sausage TV. Thanks for watching.